receive your word. Father, thank you for our pastor who preaches your word. Give him strength today to preach the gospel with clarity. God, thank you for your goodness and your provision for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Wow, I kind of feel like saying church dismissed. That was a blessing. Thank you, guys. That was awesome, Shannon. That was great. Well, good morning, everybody. If I haven't met you yet, would love to have the opportunity to do that. My name is Jason, one of the pastors here on staff. As always, I'm kind of hanging out after the service right on this side. If you haven't met me, I'd love to get to know you. If you want to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself to me, that would be great. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. We're in John chapter 14, a really pivotal chapter in the biography, in the life of Jesus. It is the last teaching moment, instructional time that Jesus will have with his disciples. And they are worried. They are worried. Jesus has been telling them that he's going to be leaving them. Now remember, these are men who have given up everything to follow Jesus. And now he says, my time with you is coming to an end. Jesus also knows that these very same men are going to face some very, very difficult times in the days ahead. In fact, they will die the death of martyrs. All of them except for one, John. He will be tortured and then banished to an island in obscurity. For example, Peter will be crucified upside down, claiming that he wasn't worthy of being crucified in the manner of his Savior. Andrew will also be crucified. Thomas will be pierced with a soldier's sword. Philip will be tortured before his death. James will be stoned and clubbed to death. Matthias will be burned. What do you say to a group of men who have given up everything to follow you, knowing that they will die the death of martyrs? How do you encourage them? And by the way, Jesus has his own concerns. We've been putting it this way for the last several weeks. Jesus is now living in the shadow of the cross, and he knows what awaits him. He's the one that needs comfort. But Jesus is the man. Out of love, compassion, he turns to the disciples and gives them what they need. Now, it's been rightfully said that all of human life is one long attempt to avoid death. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. Until that moment where you're sitting, attending the funeral of someone who's very close to you, someone that you love. And then it's like you get slapped in the face with your own mortality. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? We don't think about that much. Many years ago, in the Tokyo Journal, there was an article that was titled, "When Doctors Won't Tell Cancer Patients the Truth." And the entire article is about just that. Apparently, in Japan, there are many doctors who, when discovering that a patient has terminal cancer, they won't tell them. They don't let them know. There's a very famous story about the Emperor Hirohito, who was dying of cancer. As he's spitting up blood, they're handing him pills, telling him, you're going to be okay. And patients don't even think to ask, do I have a terminal disease? They don't ask. Why? Well, it's in large part because most Japanese don't believe in life after death. So think about it. If this is all there is, why burden someone in telling them that all there is about to end? And even for those who believe in reincarnation, what's in it for them? They're coming back in another life form, but they're coming back to the same world full of pain, heartache, and death again. All of life is one long effort not to think about it. You put it off. We spend a lot of our time preparing for things in life, don't we? We prepare for a tough conversation. We prepare for a job interview. We prepared ourselves this morning before we came to church. We'll prepare dinner tonight. But, we just don't spend a lot of time thinking about how we're going to prepare for death. And it comes quickly. I was at a high school football game on Friday night with my wife and some of our friends. And my buddy leans over and he says, Jason, he said, we were on that field almost 30 years ago. And in my mind, I thought, oh, he's got the arithmetic all wrong. It's more like 10, right? was right. It's almost 30 years ago we were in high school. Oh, it goes by fast. So in this text, let me tee it up for you. Jesus tells you how to face death without fear and without regret. John chapter 14, verse 1. Let not your hearts be troubled. It's actually a command. Better translated, stop. Stop being troubled. Stop worrying. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. And you know the way to where I'm going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, if you had known me, you would have known the Father, my Father also. From now on, you do know him, and you have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Or else believe on account of the works themselves. How do you comfort men who have given up everything, who will die in the most horrific ways, facing extreme persecution? How do you comfort them? There's only one way. It's the same way you and I are comforted. You need to know where you're going. Let me say that again. That's really important, right? How do you prepare for your own death? You need to know where you are going. And look what Jesus says. He says, I have a place for you. Place is so important. Let me tell you how important it is. Some of you don't like it when someone sits in your seat at church. Place is important. Right? And it's not just any place. Look at how Jesus refers to it. He says, it's my Father's house. What he's talking about? He's talking about a home. This is great. I love this. Jesus says, I'm going to prepare for you a home. Now, when I graduated from high school, attending ASU, I moved out of my parents' house. Moved to an apartment in Tempe. And how can I put it? This apartment was, it was lowbrow. You know what I'm saying? This place it was situated between the train tracks and a heavy metal bar called Hammerheads. Is that a great name for a heavy metal bar? Heavy metal bar called Hammerheads. So at night, you just didn't sleep. You just didn't sleep between the noise from the bar and the train. I mean, this place was really sketchy. I had 3 locks on my bike to lock it to the bike rack, which was right outside my bedroom window. The last week of school, I'm a senior at ASU, the last 1 week left, like the week of finals, I go out to hop on my bike. Someone steals the seat. But it's the last week of school. I'm not buying another seat. So I rode a bicycle. Have you ever ridden a bicycle without a seat? Okay, I did that for a solid week till my thighs were on fire. Last final, ride the bike off campus, park it at the apartment complex. Didn't lock it up, just left it for someone else to steal. Take the whole thing. Now, if you were to ask me, where do you live? If you were to ask me that question as a college, Jason, where do you live? I would tell you, I live in this apartment complex. You know what I would never tell you? I would never tell you it's my home. I would never say, oh, my home is in that apartment complex. No. Home was my parents' house. Place where you look forward to going. Pile all your laundry in the car and you drive home on the weekend, right? Get some free food. It's a place where you can kick your feet up, you can relax, right? Isn't that what home, you understand what Jesus is saying? I mean, let's get it now. Because you have a home. Home is a place where you go and it's like, oh, I'm so glad to see you. You know, the fire's going for you, lights always on, doors always open. There's laughter, there's love, there's relationship. You got your comfy chair, you can just be yourself, and it's so nice. Jesus says, you have a home. It's so good. It's like he says, I know, guys, look, it's going to be really, really rough. And life is tough. And this world can grind you up, spit you out. But here's what you need to know. At the end of life's road, you have a home. You have a home. And consider what kind of house this is. Jesus says, it's my Father's house. Now, I've been in some really nice houses. Really nice houses. But this is the kind of house your favorite DIYers on TV would bow down to this house. They bow down to this house. And more to the point, verse 3, Jesus says, look at it. I'm taking you with me. Not, hey, I'll meet you there, but you're actually going to come with me. We're going together. Now here's the question. For what reason? To set them at ease, yes, but there's more to it than that. Look at this verse, John 17:24. This is such a great verse. Zero in on it. Father, Jesus says, I desire that they, his followers also, whom you have given me, this is Jesus' desire, that they may be with me where I am. Now check this out. Look at this next phrase. Why? What is so important? What does Jesus desire? Why does Jesus have this desire? So that they can see my glory that you have given me because you loved me before the foundation of the world. What's he saying? When you experience something great in your life, what makes it extra special? It's when you experience it with someone you what? Love and care about. You ever had this really great experience, but you have it alone by yourself? It's not the same as experiencing it alongside the people that you love. Many years ago, I was on a trip to Spain with our missions pastor. And it's been a very long week meeting with different folks in the country, missionaries and different groups. And we'd been doing some teaching. It was a very long week. So at the end of the week, we stayed in a castle that had been converted into a hostel that overlooked the bay where Columbus set sail for the Americas. It was absolutely stunning. It was beautiful. I remember opening up the windows. Walls of this place, they're 3-4 feet thick. 16th century castle in Palos, Spain. And I think, I've got to call Jill. And so I pick up the phone, right? The satellite phone. And I call Jill. And I say, Jill, this place is beautiful. And as I'm talking to her, out of the bathroom walks our missions pastor wearing his tighty-whities. And he plops down on the sofa and starts watching TV. It's like watching the Golden Girls or something. And I turn around, I look over my shoulder, and I see him sitting on the couch in his underwear. And I'm looking at this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bay. And I say, Jill, oh, I wish you were here so bad. I wish you could experience this beauty, the beauty of this place with me. Now, do you see what Jesus is saying? This is really, really cool. He says, Father, here's my desire. Those that you've given me, I desire for them to be with me. Is that great? How cool is that? This is Jesus saying, I want you. I want you. I want you. I want you with me. Because see, what's going to happen is the Father who's loved me is going to present me in the fullness of my glory. And that's going to be such an amazing experience, so much joy. I want you there. Now, this tells you something about how Jesus feels about you, what he thinks of you. here's the thing. If this begins to sink into your heart, it really transforms you. This is one of those, what I refer to as purifying truths. When you really, really wrap your mind and heart around this home, this place that Jesus has in his desire for you to be there, it really does serve as a purifying truth. I've noticed that when other religions talk about the future, they don't really satisfy your need for a home. Think about it. Whatever the worldview, whatever the religion is, it doesn't really satisfy your need for a home, a place. So here's what's interesting to think about. When Jesus appears to the disciples in his resurrected body, a really interesting event is recorded. And the details are fascinating. So the disciples are huddled together in a room, and they're nervous, right? Their leader has just been crucified and buried. And they're not sure that it was supposed to go down exactly like this. The Messiah, dead? We give up everything to follow this guy. Now what do we do? So they're kind of huddled together in this room, and they're fearful and they're uncertain. And then the text says that Jesus appears in the room. And the text also says the door was locked. So here comes Jesus. He's in the room. And then you know what the text says? What does Jesus do? Of all the things he could do, what does Jesus do? He eats with them. You ever thought about that? He eats, and when we know what he eats, it says he eats fish. Question, why would Jesus do that? I think he does it in large part to help them understand that he's more than spirit. He's more than spirit. He's actually eating with them. They're sharing this meal together. And it's kind of like this snapshot of what will be. Heaven will be this place, not only of it's unimaginably beautiful, but there will be eating. There will be love. There will be laughter. There will be all the things that you generally think about in a home that is safe and secure. And so if you think this world is beautiful, which it is, consider this. God created this beauty even for those who are his enemies. Christopher Hitchin, famous atheist, would often remark on the beauty of this world. If God creates a world this beautiful, even for his enemies to enjoy, can you even begin to imagine what it will be like for those that love him? What he will create, what they will experience for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 2:9 says this, but as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love him. In other words, you can't even imagine. You can't even begin to imagine what is in store for you. So let's just take a stab at it, all right? We know there will be eating. So imagine walking up to, let's just say, an orange tree. And first of all, you're struck because it's the most beautiful, most perfect orange tree you've ever seen in your life. And you pluck an orange. You begin to peel it. And you're struck by the smell. It's the most perfect orange smell you've ever encountered. You peel it and you take a slice and you begin to eat it. And you realize, I've never tasted an orange before. I've never tasted an orange before. This is the best tasting orange. I couldn't imagine an orange tasting this good. It talks about even creatures, animals. But remember, it's a new heaven and a new earth. So imagine walking up to a dog and having no fear. I might even ride a horse. It's a new heavens and new earth. It's this perfectly recreated world. And here's the really interesting thing. We won't just admire things. We ourselves will actually be admirable. Look at Daniel chapter 12, verse 3. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above. And those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. This is really cool. This is super cool language. So have you ever been in a setting where, and this is really rare, and I get it. Most people in life have never been in this setting. So it's even hard to imagine, but have you ever been in a setting where you've been completely and totally vulnerable with another person? I'm talking full disclosure. Where you've shared things that with this person you've never shared with anyone. All the grit, all the dirt. You just totally open yourself up, you lay it out there, and then you're waiting. You're waiting. How's that person going to respond? And they say, I accept you. Not only do I accept you, but I'm with you. I am here 110% for you. This, in a very small way, is what happens to us when we encounter the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we hear Jesus saying, not only do I understand you definitely in ways that you don't understand yourself, I look inside your heart and I see everything that's in there. See, this is what makes a marriage great, by the way. It's when you're able to look inside your spouse's heart and they're vulnerable and they reveal everything that's in there, and you do the same, and you say, oh, here's my junk. Oh, here are my issues. Here are my thoughts. And your spouse looks at you and says, okay, I see it, I understand it, and I love you. Whoa. I mean, so the gospel comes into your life, and your heart is opened up to the things of God. And not only is there, I see it, I understand it, and I love you, but I want you with me. I want you with me. There's not only this sense of acceptance, but there's this sense that we have to be together. And forever. And I love what Jesus says. The language is so good. He says, I'm going to take you with me. So here's the all-important question. And we've been leading up to this, right? How do you get there? How do you get to this place? Jesus says this in verse 4. He says, you know the way. Isn't that interesting? He says, you know the way to get there. Thomas says, hey, Lord, will you show us the way? It's like, is it as simple as, can we just program the GPS into our phone, and kind of, can we MapQuest it or Google it? Can you give us the address? And Jesus says, no, it's not like that, but you know the way to get there. Thomas is like, how are we going to, tell us where so that we can follow you? And what does Jesus say? He gives this great statement. He says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. And then he has this, no one comes to the Father but through me. So we've talked about this before. This is one of the reasons why people hate Christianity, because it sounds too exclusive. And if there's one thing modern people don't like, it's exclusivity. What they don't realize is that all faith claims, all religions, we're not all saying the same thing. The law of non-contradiction tells us we can't all be right. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong. So Jesus says, you know the way, I am the way. If you know me, you know the way. And then he has this, I am the truth. Now this is in our time, we want truth to be like beauty, in the sense that it's in the eye of the beholder. What's true for you is fine, but don't impose your truth on me. That sounds really good, but let me ask you this. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a lie? The truth becomes very important to you. So when we're told, there are many ways to God, you are on the receiving end of the biggest lie that's ever been told, and the consequences are very, very high. The truth is very important. This is brilliant for Jesus to say this, because he's actually highlighting something that's extremely relevant to our own time. I am the way, I am the truth that leads to eternal life. So here's what Jesus is saying. The people who get to heaven are those who recognize that they can't get there on their own. You need someone who knows the Father to get you into the Father's house. You need someone who, in a sense, has the key. And this is where I think we sell ourselves so short, because we buy into the world. We pursue pornography. money, relationships. We use people to get our needs met. We love the things on this earth. And what we're essentially trying to do is make this place our home. And that's probably the reason why some of us are so dissatisfied day in and day out. It's like we're really longing to make this place our home, and we're left feeling very, very empty inside. It's like traveling around with your laundry in the back of your car, looking for that place where you can just dump all your junk and be safe and secure and know that there is a place for you no matter what you do, where you go. See, this is so profound what Jesus says to them. You have a home, and the gospel takes you to that home, and it's personal knowledge of Jesus. That's the thing that opens up the windows to your life. And the gospel is knowing Jesus. That's why he says, I am the way. So in Luke chapter 17, verse 3, Jesus says this, and this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. See, here's the thing about Philip, though. This is an interesting case study. Philip didn't know God because he didn't know Jesus. And he actually says to Jesus, can you just show us God? Can you just show us the Father? And you can just sense the exasperation in Jesus' voice. He's like, are you kidding me? Philip, are you really asking me this question? Have I been with you so long and you're still asking me? You don't know me and I've been with you for a while. And here's what we learn. It's actually possible to hang around Jesus, to be standing around Jesus. Check this out. It's possible to serve Jesus. That's what Philip did. Remember, he was one of the guys that was sent out and performed miracles and cast out demons and performed works. And he still doesn't understand what Jesus was all about. You can be full of knowledge and full of zeal and not know Jesus. So he knew about Jesus, but he didn't know him personally. And that's the context of our own time. We have this false understanding of what it means to really know people. And this is kind of a weird conversation to have in a way. But it's our culture and environment that really necessitates it. You know, we think we know somebody. We know people informationally. Social media, we know people on a very casual level, and we fool ourselves into thinking that we know more of them than we do. It's kind of like when you see somebody either on television or through some other format, some other media format, social media, and you begin to think, man, I really know this person, right? You may even think, this person's really cool. We could be friends, you know, and then they take their own lives. And you're like, what? You didn't know them at all. You knew them, you knew information about them, but you didn't know them personally. So how do you get to know someone personally, right? Think about the deeper relationships you have. It isn't until you sit down with someone and you begin talking with them. You begin listening. You begin interacting. That's why the Bible talks about personal relationship with God, following Jesus. That word following, that's an action word. Getting to know someone. You display vulnerability. You discover what hurts them, what helps them. You both do that, and you open yourself up to a friendship. And so there are many people who come to church, and their relationship with Jesus is nothing more than an acquaintance because they know Jesus informationally, but they don't know him personally. I think of your marriage. You know, it's like if you and your wife treat each other as business partners, you're going to be let down. You're going to have a really dissatisfying marriage. So, question, how do I know if I really know Jesus? You move from informational knowledge to personal knowledge. What's the difference? Personal knowledge affects your heart. That's the difference. You know, I have personal knowledge of my kids. You know what that gives me? That's a heart connection. And Jesus says, remember what you have coming to you. And the disciples took this to heart, early Christians. And proof of this is the Romans, they never saw anything like Christianity. They had never experienced anything like Christianity because Christians would be fed to the lions. Christians would be tortured. And Christians would be singing songs. They would be rejoicing on the way to their torture. And the world had never seen anything like it. How do you get there? What goes through a person's mind? Romans 8:1, Paul says, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. That's how. That's really, really good, isn't it? You know, Paul is one of those guys where he gives sort of like, he lays down his street cred because there were some people who weren't really listening to what he had to say. And he says, man, you open yourselves up to anybody who walks through the door. But let me just give you my street cred. And then he talks about what he has suffered for the sake of the gospel. And Paul is one of those guys, if he took his shirt off and he showed you his back, it would be grotesque. What's going on? What's going through his mind? There's a home for me. And Jesus wants me there. And he's going to take me there. So I consider the sufferings of this world light. Not even worth comparing, he says, to the glory that is to be revealed. So there's a lot of implications on how you live your life. You have the power to love people because you know the things of this world are temporary. You say, hey, you know, I want to buy another thing. Okay, well, how is that thing that you purchase going to get people into the mansion that God has prepared for them? Right? I mean, that's why everything changes now. When you realize that there is a home to be had and you want other people to be there, how can I use my resources, what God has given me? Everything changes. The world says, oh man, it's just tough. And then you die. You say, yeah, that's true, but Jesus has something for me. The world tells you that happiness is what you can have here and now, and so we buy into it, and we acquire, and we accumulate, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and our lives are undone. Why? Because we've made this our home. Here's how you know that you've made things on this earth your home. What would it do to you if you lost it? Is that a fair question? What would it do to you if you didn't have it anymore? It's probably something that you're turning into a home. So let me conclude by asking you this. Have you prepared yourself to meet the one who went to prepare a place for you? How do you do that? How do you do it? Jesus says, believe in me. Believe in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so some of you may be here and you're kind of like Philip, where it's like, you know, hey, I've been around, but I don't really know. Is he real to you? Do you long for him? When you wake up in the morning, is he your first thought? When you go to bed at night, is he your last thought? And for some of us, and I'm going to put myself in this camp as well, there are times when we just need to pause, reflect, and say, what is that's keeping me from that? What is it that I'm holding on to that's keeping me from embracing all that Jesus says that I have? And from embracing this idea that Jesus wants me where he is, and he's going to take me there. And I'll tell you what, the more I let that truth sink in, the more I gain personal knowledge of Jesus, man, the more open-handed I am with all things. Let me tell you something. That is so transformative. So, Father, it's a text that forces us to pause and reflect. It's not an easy one. But isn't that where most good things in life lie? When we're confronted with what is challenging and difficult. And yet it's made simple in knowing that you want us with you and that you've prepared a place for us. And so, Lord, I pray for every person in the room, your Spirit would speak to them exactly where they're at. We ask it for your glory and for our good, according to the mighty name of your Son, Jesus Christ. And God's people said, amen.
You are who you say you are. You'll do what you say you'll do. You'll be who you've always